Dear children, we are going to study Chapter 1 Power Sharing from Political Science Class 10. You have in Class 9 studied that in a democracy, all power does not rest with any one organ of the government. An intelligent sharing of power among the legislature, executive and judiciary is very important for the design of democracy. Now, in this chapter, the idea of power sharing is going to be explained in detail, drawing parallels between the stories of Belgium and Sri Lanka. Not only this, you are also going to learn the different forms of power sharing. So, let's begin with the story of Belgium. Belgium, is a very small country in Europe, and it has got a population of over 1 crore, and surprisingly, almost about half the population of Haryana in our own country. Of the country's total population of Belgium, 59% speaks Dutch language, 40% of people speak French, and the remaining 1% speak German. Now, when you look at the map, you would come to know the language variation of Belgium. Well, in the book, you have got that map available, where you can come across the fact that the minority French speaking community was rich and powerful, so they got the benefit of economic development and education both. Now, this created tensions where between the Dutch speaking and the French speaking communities, and it was during 1950s and 1960s. So, what happened next? In Belgium, accommodation became a great issue. The government handled the community difference very well, and between 1970 and 1993, for these 23 years, Belgian leaders amended their constitution 4 times, and they also came up with a new model to run the government. Now, what does this new model of constitution speak about? What are those elements of the Belgium model? Let us look into it precisely. The constitution in Belgium prescribes that the number of Dutch and French speaking ministers shall be equal in the central government. Some special laws require the support of the majority of members from each linguistic group. Thus, no single community can make decision unilaterally. This is an important element of the Belgian model. Secondly, the state governments are not the subordinates to the central government. The third beautiful element of the Belgium model is that Brussels has a separate government in which both communities have equal representation. And lastly, apart from the central and the state government, there is a third kind of government. Now, this is known as community government, which is elected by people belonging to one language community, Dutch, French and German speaking, no matter where they live. This government has the power regarding cultural, educational and language related issues. So, the Belgium model was very complicated, but it helps to avoid civic strife between the two major communities. Now, let us proceed towards the story of Sri Lanka. Let us take the situation of this country. It is an island having a population of 2 crores, about the same as in Haryana in India, and Sri Lanka has a diverse population. When you read about it, you will come to know that the major social groups are the Sinhala speakers, 74% of the total population, and the other group that speaks Tamil is 18%. Among Tamils, there are 2 subgroups, one Sri Lankan Tamils and another Indian Tamils. You can, from the map of the ethnic communities of Sri Lanka, make it out, and you will come to know the population distribution of different communities as well. So you can see on the map that Sinhala basically, are the communities which spread mostly in Sri Lanka, and thereafter we find out the people who are known as Sri Lankan Tamil and Indian Tamil, and in a very small number we can find out even Muslims basically comprising this entire population of Sri Lanka. They enjoyed basically, especially Sinhala community, because the bigger majority came from there, and hence this community imposed its will on the entire country. So what happens that when one community has got the majority, the country like Sri Lanka suffers the majoritarianism, and it emerged as an independent country in 1948. So the Sinhala community was in the majority, so they had formed the government naturally. They also followed preferential policy that favored Sinhala applicants for university positions and government jobs. Now these measures taken by the government gradually increased the feeling of alienation among the Sri Lankan Tamils. Because the number of Sri Lankan Tamils was less, they felt that constitution and government policies denied them equal political rights. They also felt that the policy discriminated against them in getting jobs and other opportunities, and ignored their interests as well. Owing to this, the relationship between the Sinhala and the Tamil communities, became bitter. Sri Lankan Tamils launched parties and struggles for the recognition of Tamil as an official language, for regional autonomy and equality of opportunity in securing education and jobs. But the demands that they put forth were repeatedly denied by the government. So the distrust between the two communities turned into widespread conflict, and it was almost a civil war. As a result, thousands of people of both the communities have been killed. As of now, many families were forced to leave the country as refugees, and many more lost their livelihoods. So the civil war ended in 2009 and caused a terrible setback to the social, cultural and economic life of the country. So when you look into the stories of these two countries, the Belgium and Sri Lanka, you come to know that both countries, although are democracies, yet they dealt differently with the concept of power sharing. In Belgium, the leaders realized that the unity of the country was possible only by respecting the feelings and interests of different communities and regions, and this resulted in mutually acceptable arrangements for sharing power. But in the story of Sri Lanka, you came to know that the majority community wanted to force its dominance over others and refused to share the power. This majority community could undermine the unity of the country. So, these were the things that we learned from the stories of Belgium and Sri Lanka in terms of power sharing. Now the question comes, why is power sharing so desirable? Now, we need to understand that power sharing is good because it helps to reduce the possibility of conflicts between social groups. And the second important reason is that a democratic rule involves sharing power with those affected by its exercise and who have to live with its effects. People have a right to be consulted on how they are to be governed. Let us call this first set of reasons prudential and the second one moral. The prudential reasons stress that power sharing will bring out better outcomes, whereas the moral reasons emphasize the act of power sharing as valuable. Now, what is the form of this power sharing? Most of you must think that sharing power, dividing power, weakening the country, these are the same synonymous words. No. The similar thing was believed in the past also, and it was assumed that all the power of a government must reside in one person or a group of persons located at one place. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to make quick decisions and to enforce them. But gradually these notions underwent a change with the emergence of democracy. In a democratic state, people rule themselves through institutions and self-government. This we have read. Now, everyone has a voice in the sharing of public policies. Therefore, in a democratic country, political power should be distributed among citizens. So, just have a glimpse of the modern democracies, how power sharing can take many forms. We will see it gradually in further discussion, and I am sure you are concentrating hard to listen to this audio, because these are the very important points to prepare yourself for the forthcoming board examinations of 2021. Let us see it. Power is shared among different organs of government, such as the legislature, executive and judiciary. Now, we call it horizontal distribution of power because it allows different organs of government placed at the same level to exercise different powers. Such separation ensures that none of the organs can exercise unlimited power. Each organ checks the others. This arrangement of power sharing is called a system of checks and balances. Now, here checks, do not mean CHEQUES. It is CHECKS. And balances means to balance the equilibrium, not the accounts balances. Don't get confused with the words. You need to be very clear about it. Well, coming to the second point, the form of power sharing. Power can be shared among governments at different levels. A general government for the entire country and governments at the provincial or regional level, which we call federal government. Let's see the third form. Power may also be shared among different social groups such as the religious and linguistic groups. Community government in Belgium is a very good example of this arrangement. This method is used to give minority communities a fair share in power. And the fourth form of power sharing is the arrangements, which can also be seen in the way political parties, pressure groups and movements control or influence those in power. When two or more parties form an alliance to contest elections, and if they get elected, they form a coalition government and thus share the power. This is the fourth form of power sharing. So, this way, in this audio, you have learnt about power sharing. We have seen the stories of two countries and have understood the nuances to get yourself prepared for appearing at the board examinations. Stay tuned with DNA for more such videos on YouTube.